Hello, everyone. My name is Adam Keys. I'm a product manager here at TestOut, and we're really glad to have you on this call. We wanted to talk a little bit more about our Client Pro course, and we're excited for an update that is coming out on May 26th. A couple management items for the webinar. In the GoToWebinar task panel that comes up when you start this, there is a questions tab. Throughout this webinar, if you have a question, I'll be here to help answer those, or if it's something that applies to everyone, we'll save it towards the end so that we can address that for all to hear. But if you do have any questions, just send them to me in that panel and I'll handle those. And at the very end of the webinar, we just have a short 4-question survey. We want to know your thoughts on how this webinar goes. We want to know what topics you're interested in, what future products you're interested in, and anything else you would like us to know. So to introduce our presenter today, we have Craig Jenkins. He is the lead instructional designer on our Client Pro course. He is very well educated in the changes that Microsoft has made to the Microsoft 365 certified modern desktop administrator associate, and how those changes impact previous courses for TestOut and previous classes you may have been teaching, and moving into that new standard of the MD100 and MD101 exams. So with that being said, I'm pleased to introduce Craig, and he'll tell us everything we need to know.
Well, thanks, Adam. That's a great introduction. I don't know that I'll tell you everything you know, but I'll try to tell you as much as I can about Microsoft or the new Client Pro course. We're glad to have you, and good morning, everyone. Maybe good afternoon to those of you who are on the East Coast. We'll jump into, this is the agenda for the webinar that we'll be talking through today. We're going to go through some of the changes that have happened, discuss a little bit about the Microsoft desktop administrator architecture. We'll talk about what we've dropped out of the course, what we've left, what's new, and we'll get into some of the course organization issues. So if you've taught Client Pro before, hopefully we'll be able to give you a good feel for what you're getting into with the new course when it releases on the 26th. So as you know, the reason we're having this update is because Microsoft retired 70-697, the Configuring Windows Devices exam, and also the 7698, Installing and Configuring Windows 10. Both of those courses are retired already, and MD100 and MD101 are the new courses that kind of replace those. The Windows 10 course is very similar to the Windows 698 course that was there before, but the MD101 Managing Modern Desktops exam has changed quite a bit from the 697 in that before it was more along the lines of managing devices, and now we're getting more into the cloud management. The cool thing for your students is that both of those exams are covered in the course, and with both of those exams, they're able to obtain their Microsoft 365 certified modern desktop administrator associate. And so we'll get into some of the details of part of that and why we're doing that. As some of the things that are going to be new in the course, you're probably familiar with our style of some of our other courses. If you're not, the Client Pro course was actually one of TestOut's oldest courses and had some of the oldest videos that we've had for a long time. And so as part of this update to the Client Pro course, all of the videos were completely redone and reshot in the new style using our instructors. We have Spencer and Tracy and Alex and Katie there. We have a little introduction to them so that your students can get to know who they are. And we've had some comments from some of our instructors out there that you'd like to know the names of the presenters in the videos. And so we went ahead and put their names in the videos so that, you know, the students didn't like having to refer to bald guy with the beard, you know, or the perky girl, you know, in the videos. So they we do give you their names and allow you to, and they're happy with you using their names. They are actually their real names. So all of the videos were reshot to improve the resolution of the videos and to improve the style and quality of all those videos. In the same vein, our demos in this course were some of the oldest demos that we had, and so they've all been redone, re-recorded, in the latest and greatest resolutions and up to date with the latest technology. All of the client pieces that we've recorded are on, for Windows 10, are on build 1903 or newer, so that you have all of the latest features that are also showing up in Windows 10 these days. So in addition to that, we've updated all of the simulations in the course. If you're familiar with our course simulations, we've been slowly migrating all of the courses to TypeScript. And the cool thing about the TypeScript migration is our courses, our simulations, the performance of them is about double the speed of what they were in the previous version of the simulations. The TypeScript helps, and it's a tighter coding language that makes sure that things run smoother and better. And as I mentioned, all of the demos are using Windows 10 version 1903. All of the simulations have also been updated to use Windows 10 1903 and later. And the difference there is mainly a lot of things that used to be configured in Control Panel are now configured in the Settings app. And so the simulations have been updated to do things the way that you would see them on a modern computer. Our servers have been updated to Windows 2000 or Server 2019 in the simulations also, so you'll see the most up-to-date servers there. And one of the cool things that you may not have seen if you teach client, but some of our other courses have started to implement, we've added a question feature inside of the labs. The question feature allows us to ask questions of the student as they go through the lab. Some of our labs are very specific to a particular task, but some of our labs are a little more exploratory. And for these exploratory kind of labs, we're able to ask the question of the student, as you went through and did this, what happened, and some of those kind of things. It gives us the opportunity to interact with the student a little bit more in the lab and guide them a little bit better in some of the things that they do. And so that's a great new feature that we have in our labs that we've implemented also in the Client Pro course. So during my time here at TestOut, I've seen, when I started working at TestOut, we had our own web server, or our own mail server. We had all of our servers were local to TestOut. And over the years, we've gone to Microsoft 365. We've implemented Azure as our platform for our courses. We've implemented tools that are cloud-based. So recently, with the COVID-19 virus and all of the things that have happened there, TestOut has sent us all home to work from home. And the cool thing is because we have so many of these cloud applications that we're using, the transition for us to work from home was pretty smooth. There are a few little glitches here and there with some of the applications that only run in-house, but for the most part, all of those applications that run in the cloud and that we use for our normal business activities still work great when we use them from home. And that's kind of the way modern IT has been moving, from the local machines to using the cloud-based kind of application and management. And so as you can see, the idea of multiple devices and your users have their own devices that they bring, and we want to be more proactive and self-service. On the next slide here, it kind of compares that to the classic IT versus the modern IT. I started here at TestOut when a lot of it was still classic IT. We had our own servers and they were business owned, and we had the corporate network with legacy apps. And things have changed over the years, and I think that's changed for most companies as you see that migration over the last 10 years to more things in the cloud, more devices that the users bring with them to work, and the need to be able to manage company data on those devices and the different kinds of devices that companies use. And so that's kind of what the MD101 and the MD100 exams have tried to capture. And so in the Client Pro course, we've tried to capture that same flavor and that same essence of how do you deal with these new types of things, the cloud managed and the user own devices, and how do people manage those kind of things. And that's what we're really trying to get students into understanding. The world of classic IT, it's still there, and there's a lot of investment in classic architecture that'll be around for a long time. a lot of the companies that are doing these kind of things are moving slowly to the cloud managed kind of applications. So in the course, we talk about Windows 10 pretty heavily because that's, the MD100 is Windows 10, both the enterprise version, and then we also get into the devices managed with Intune. As I mentioned, the customers or users are bringing their own devices to work, and you've got to figure out how they can use those devices with the corporate data. One of the things that tends to be a real challenge for people is they have like I mentioned, there's a large investment in corporate architecture, and there's a large on-premise set of equipment that's out there, yet you need to be able to manage things in the cloud also. And so how do you do the two of those together? One of the things the students will learn in the course is all about co-management. And co-management is the idea that using Configuration Manager, you can manage all of your devices in some of the legacy mode, I guess you would say, the legacy method of managing these things on premise, but you can, at the same time, you can migrate some of that management into the cloud with Intune. And so Configuration Manager allows you to manage both your legacy on-premise things and your new style things in the cloud. And that was worded very well, I'm sure, but that's the whole idea of the course, is that we cover the Windows 10, but we also cover how do you manage the mobility and security of that through the modern architecture. Some of the candidates that we're looking at are going to need to be able to do some of these tasks. As you can see there, we want them to be able to deploy and secure and manage, monitor devices, and then monitor applications, all of those kind of things in an enterprise environment. And as we've talked about, the enterprise environment is migrating from that legacy IT to the new modern IT. We want the candidates to be able to manage identity and access control and policies and updates and apps, and be able to meet the organization's needs with the data management and the device management that the organizations that they'll be working for will need. So let's get into some of the specifics of the changes. For those of you who are familiar with our current Client Pro course, what I'm going to highlight over the next few slides here is some of the things that you'll no longer find there. As you can see in the list here, I specified where the information came from on the 697 objective, but the things that are on the right-hand side there, libraries and home groups are gone, client-side virtualization is gone, portable Windows installations. We actually still mention that somewhat, but it's not to the degree that it used to be. Storage spaces and DFS and anything pretty well that has to do with storage has been removed from the course because it's no longer in the objectives. From the 698 side, that's the Windows 10 side of things. Most of what's missing now is not as much of the hardware management. So the disk and file system pieces, the storage, once again, less of the printer, and some of the hardware optimizations that were in the 698 course are no longer there. So we're not talking as much about hardware as we used to in the course. We still cover some of the essential pieces like drivers and such, but as far as setting up disk arrays and things like that on the local boxes, that's no longer covered. So some of the material that's still there in the course that you'll be happy, I guess, or maybe not happy, I don't know. But these are the topics that are still in the course because they apply to some of the things that we've talked about, the more modern IT architecture, some of the cloud-based applications and the Windows Store. If you'll notice there, we still need to be able to migrate user profiles and data migration. Device management we've talked about, that we need to be able to manage the user's devices with Intune. And in our previous client course, we covered Intune at a smaller level or a lighter level, and the degree of discussion of Intune is much greatly enhanced in the new course. We still cover network configuration and desktop apps and backups and updates. So some of the highlights from the 698 side of things, the Windows 10 side, we still cover Active Directory, image deployment. That's kind of lightly covered in the objectives, but most of our IT guys felt like that was a topic that was important enough that we continue to cover that. The network configuration and remote management and monitoring are pieces that have stayed in the course from before. The nice thing is as I mentioned, the 698 objectives and the MD100 objectives were not, they kind of come from a different angle, but they cover a lot of the same material. And so the Windows 10 information, a lot of it is still there, but updated to the newer 1903 and later features that are in Windows 10. So what's new? That's probably the thing you really care about, I guess, is not so much what we got rid of and what we were keeping, but the new stuff is probably the more important. So autopilot is new, and we discussed co-management, the idea of being able, how do you manage your legacy IT infrastructure with your new style Intune and in the cloud management. Co-management is a big topic because companies can't just get rid of their existing architecture and move to a new architecture. There needs to be a way to make that transition. Conditional access and compliance policies for your users' devices. How much are you going to, of the corporate data are you going to allow them to see? Device profiles and management. And then managing Windows Defender is kind of an interesting topic because Microsoft has renamed several of their applications. For example, the firewall used to be Windows Firewall. It's now Windows Defender Firewall. And interestingly enough, what was called Windows Defender, the Windows Defender application, is actually now called Windows Security. So they've kind of shifted things around, but the application guard, credential guard, and exploit guard pieces are all in that Windows Defender umbrella of applications now. And so those are all covered in the course. Deploying and updating Office 365. And then probably one of the more important pieces for mobile device management is the mobile application management. As I mentioned, you've got users that bring their own device to work. How do we allow them to have corporate data on their device and be able to use that data in accordance with company policies? And what do we allow them to have on their device, and under what conditions do we allow them to have that on their device? From the MD100 side of things, there aren't a lot of new topics. Interestingly enough, configuring the local registry is in the objectives, and that's something that we've actually never covered in the course before. Even in the old days of Windows 10 and Windows 7 in the Client Pro course, they've never had an objective for the local registry, but we do now. And a little more detail on configuring mobile networking is in the course. So those are kind of some of the new topics that are in the course to allow the student to understand that world of transitioning to the modern IT infrastructure and how they're going to manage these devices and applications from Intune and such. So as I mentioned, Microsoft Device Management, or Intune, we have several demos and pieces that allow the student to understand that architecture. We also cover the Microsoft 365 Admin Center and several of those pieces of in the cloud management. Security portions of Microsoft 365 Admin Center. And then Azure Active Directory Admin Center. So being able to manage your Active Directory from Azure also, instead of from your local domains. So those are some of the pieces that are new and covered in demos in the course. One of the things I wanted to, I forgot the Windows Defender pieces that we talked about. Like I mentioned, the Windows Defender, now Microsoft Defender Security Center, some of those pieces have in Windows 10 have been renamed so that they're called Windows Defender Firewall and Windows Defender Firewall, the Advanced Firewall. They're all renamed in some of those ways too. But the cloud-based management of the exploit guard and pieces that are there too. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to highlight quickly is this is the way the course is going to be structured. And one of the key things, based on some of the feedback that we got from several of the instructors at our conference last summer, we were able to, one of the big pieces of feedback that we got from instructors there was that Windows installation needed to be covered up front in the course and not in chapter 11 or wherever it was we had it before. Because a lot of you, as you're working on your courses, maybe not all of you, but several of the instructors we received feedback from said that they like to follow along, installing a system and working through some of the course pieces with the students. So having Windows installation at the beginning made a big difference for several of the instructors. So as you'll notice there, we have the course introduction, and then we jump right into Windows installation and system imaging, and then we cover some of the key pieces. You'll also notice there in chapter 13, the Windows Defender, and that's not just Windows Defender, what we now call the application on your local machine that we now call Windows Windows Security, but that includes the exploit guard and the credential guard and those other pieces that are in there. So we cover the full gamut of what now is called Windows Defender. And as you'll notice, we have our Client Pro practice certification exam and a practice certification exam for both MD100 and MD101. So that's kind of the basic layout of the course and some of the key changes that we've made. The big change being the Windows installation moving up front and some of the key components of Windows Defender that are there. A lot of the other pieces, such as Intune, we've already covered in the Windows device and user management piece there also. So those are kind of the big highlights of what we've done with Client Pro and where we're going with that. The course will release on May 26th. You should have instructor access available to you already to be able to pop in and see how things are going with the course. Most all of the pieces are there already for the course, with the exception of a few of the videos that are still being in final production and getting the final polishing put on those. For those videos that are missing, you'll see a in progress thing out there. We have some cute little gophers that we put out there. But that's the information that I have for you all. We can shift back to Adam here. Do we have any questions that we need to answer for everybody on the webinar, Adam?
Hey, Craig, thank you. We have a couple questions that have come in that I've responded to a few of you individually. A couple questions around what type of labs are included. We do have a draft outline for this course that has been released that has a full list of all the different labs and content that are provided. And I can send that out to any of you who need it as well. It is on, actually, I can get you that right now. But for those who just joined, or joined partway through, we've got a questions panel as part of the GoToWebinar interface. If you click on questions, you can submit your questions right now, and we'll address those questions as they come in. And then in that same questions panel, I will reply with the draft outline, so that way everybody can have that. One of the questions we have is, that just came in, or when will the LTI shells and other instructor resources be released? The official release date on this course is May 26th, and that is when we will have all of the typical instructor resources. Craig, we have PowerPoints on this one as well, correct?
That's correct.
So we'll have the PowerPoints, the course outline, the lesson plans ready by the May 26th launch date.
The LTI integrations comes from the integration team. Do we have a firm date from them on those?
Not yet for them, but now that there is, for those who also just joined, we did have pre-release access released to anyone who had an activation of this as an instructor. So they have the new Client Pro version, but if you don't have pre-release access, we can get that to you as well. We've got one question: what does the MD stand for in MD100 and 101? I don't know. Craig, do you?
I'm not sure I know either. I assume the M is for Microsoft, but that's interesting, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how they come up with some of their numbering.
I've never quite.
Managed desktop maybe, or
There we
modern
go. Yeah,
desktop? Is
modern
there something?
desktop 101. Yeah, that sounds good.
You're probably right there since it's modern desktop administrator associate. All right, thank you everyone for fixing that for us.
Well, and I never can quite figure out what some of the CompTIA exam numbers stand for either. So
Perfect. I'm reading through the questions as we get them. As they come in, I have to read as we go. So sorry for the slight pause. Will there be more labs involved with Office 365?
So that's a good question. With this course, we weren't able to get as many labs in the Office 365 and the new stuff, but we do have several new labs that are in the Windows Defender area of things. And some of the new web-based applications are a little more difficult to do simulations for. We're working on how we can do that. One of the struggles we've had with that is even over the course of development of this Client Pro course, the interfaces that Microsoft has for even Intune have changed quite a bit. And so sometimes the pieces of what we're trying to simulate and what we're trying to demo for you are a moving target. So it's a little less heavy on the simulations for the new part of the course, the MD101 pieces. The MD100 side is very heavy and very rich with a lot of the good Windows 10 simulations.
And will we provide a map of objectives that distinguish between the MD100 and 101 for students that want to sit for one before the other?
Yes, so in the course we have a set of objectives that lists all of those, but we also, as a teaching aid, provide you with the list of objectives. We've started providing a list of the objectives and which sections are cover each objective, but we also do the reverse, which is which by section, what objective does that cover? So you can kind of see which sections exactly are needed to cover 101 and 101 piece, or 100 versus 101 pieces versus things that are specific for our TestOut Pro objectives.
And for those, if I don't directly address your questions, I can reach out to you individually, but I'm trying to keep them to the questions related to this specific course. And for those that have questions about more other test out courses as well as information on pricing, we'll reach out to you after the webinar and get you the details that you need. And you may ask, can we just put a set price somewhere? We do have different segment pricing, and our account executives work with individual needs to determine pricing based on a number of factors. Another question we had here, we currently have two courses covering the 698 and 697 exams. Is this new course, will it have enough information to spread across 2 semesters? How does it compare with our current Client Pro course?
So that's actually a really good question as far as the amount of content is concerned, because I mentioned that the previous Client Pro course was probably our oldest course as far as videos and demos and things that were in it, and we even had some of the old, really old style videos in the previous Client Pro course. And as a result, it also covered Windows 7 and some of those pieces in the previous course. So it was also our largest course. So Client Pro is even bigger than our PC Pro course as far as content that was covered. In creating this new course for MD100 and MD101, the course has been trimmed down a little bit as far as we got rid of all the Windows 7 content that was extra in the course, but the course itself is probably about the same size as the existing Client Pro course, and so there should be plenty of material to cover both an MD100 and an MD101 course if that's the way you would like to teach it.
Great.
That wasn't very specific, but we'll have instructor guides published fairly soon also. Those will come out with the course. And the instructor guide also at the end of that, if you haven't ever seen those before, has an actual time estimate of how long the course is and how long it would be expected to if you were to go through all of the materials of the course, how long it would take. And for Client Pro, that's always been in the 80 hours plus range. And I suspect it will be again when we run those numbers on this course.
Okay, so it is trimmed down a little bit, but it is still quite a lengthy course. So
Correct. Yes.
Perfect.
Good summary, Adam. Thank you.
One question that just came in, with Windows 10 moving to cloud bundled with Office and called Microsoft 365, how does the course address that?
So the course addresses both sides, from the legacy implementations of Windows 10 all the way through the Microsoft 365 implementations, and covers installation of both sides of those. So we do cover the kind of the whole gamut of the range.
And then there's the question of will there be updated practice exams for the Microsoft certification, and that's a yes. We will have practice exams for both of those.
So that's actually something that is probably worth mentioning too. We have our exam team. We've actually, over the last couple of years, TestOut has invested in an entire exam team to help make our practice exams better and better. And so with the exam team's help, all of the questions have been revamped in this course and redone, and many of them are new questions because of the new material, but it's the questions you should find are in much better shape than other courses you may have seen. So we've put a lot of effort, I guess is what I'm trying to say, into making sure that our questions are really good practice questions.
Another question, how long do students have access to the course if they don't take the two MD100 and 101 courses back to back? With most of our academic licenses, we do an 18-month access. So if they take both courses within that 18 months, they'll be good with just one purchase of the course. And then there are some questions about the domain exams, the length of the domain exams. They are pretty lengthy in our current course. Craig, I believe they're still similar to that, but we do have the custom exam option where you can select questions from those domain exams to break it up into smaller pieces.
Well, the other thing that we've done to kind of help with that issue is the purpose of the domain exams is really not to be so much an exam as it is to give the student a place where they can access all of the questions if they want to see them and go through them all. So it's more of a student study kind of a thing than it should be. But what we have done in all of our recent courses is we've added a domain 20 exam, we call it. And what it does is it's kind of the same as the domain exam, but every time you run it, you pull 20 random questions from the domain. So it gives the students a set of questions that they can probably answer in a class period. The only difficulty you may have with that is each question, or each time they pull the questions, they'll be different and they're not the same like they are in some of the section exams. We try to keep the section exam questions in the same order so that if you want to walk through the questions with the students, they're going to get the same questions that you get as you go through the questions. We do that with the domain exams too. If for some reason you really wanted to go through 300 questions with the students on the domain exam, they're going to show up in the same order so that you can walk through it with them. In the 20 random questions, each time they pull an exam, they will get a random 20 questions, but at least they'll have a small set of questions that they can answer in a class period. and give them some practice without having to use the huge domain exams. We know those are problematic for trying to use in a course, and our recommendation would be to not use them in the course. Let the students use those just as study material so they can see all of the questions if they desire to do so.
Thanks. And then do we have any more questions to come up? Again, if there are specific ones not related to this course, I'll respond to you separately, probably by email. But we'll give another minute for any other questions that you may have. And then again, as we wrap up, there is a quick 4-question survey at the very end. Just a couple questions about this, what other topics you would like to see, or what other courses would you like to see from TestOut, as well as a spot just if you have any thoughts or feedback for us as a company. We are always interested in that. All right, doesn't look like we have any new ones coming in. So again, thank you, Craig, very much for all of your insight and helping us to learn what the changes are with the Microsoft 365 Certified, as well as with Client Pro. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. My direct email is, I'm Adam Keys, so my email is keys@testout.com, and that comes directly to me. I'm happy to have any feedback, any questions, and even happy to jump on a call if there's any needs that you have. Again, thank you all for joining in. We look forward to, if you're dealing with CCNA, if you're a CCNA school, we will have another webinar next week on Wednesday that talks about the changes for CCNA and Cisco Academy and how our routing and switching course will change with that. So if you haven't seen that in your email, it will be coming across soon, or you can find it in the message center in LabSim when you log into TestOut if you have a current account. And again, thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Craig, for all of your responses, and we look forward to speaking with all of you in the future.
Thanks, everybody.